You can. Right. Hello, and welcome to the 41st Annual Women of Task Force Career Conference. My name is Monica Hickson, and I'm here to welcome you to the 5 brilliant elements to power up your communication. I'm looking forward to this wonderful presentation. What we're going to ask that you do is keep your mics muted if you can. There will be time for Q&A. And if you have any concerns or questions, you can always put your comments into the chat. We will be recording this session, so we do ask that you are aware of that. We will also be adding closed captioning. So without further ado, because we have a lot of good stuff to get to, I'm going to introduce Deborah Olowski. Go ahead, Deborah.
Thank you, Monica. So I'm Dr. Deborah Orlowski, but you could call me Deborah, that's okay. I'm really happy to be here today, but I'm kind of nervous. I've never done a session on Zoom before, and so I hope it's going to be okay. I'm not sure about it, but I hope so. Just so that you know something about myself. I've been the lead on several projects at U of M before I retired, like Foundations of Supervision and the Leading Change Practicum, and I was a member of the Women of Color Task Force for several years. I've been to the conference almost every year, and I've presented at many of them, and I just feel like I'm bragging, so let's just get into it, okay? All right, let's do this. Hello, everybody. Good morning. So I would like to start off with a very quick question to you all, and if you could put it back. Oh, you got my back. Thank you, Valerie. In the chat box, I'd like you to know, what was your impression of me when I was doing that introduction? Okay, what were you thinking? What were you feeling about me? And please be honest. I can see one person and she's raising her eyebrows and kind of laughing. So I have a feeling I know what she's thinking. Relatable, unsure, nervous, worried, friendly, transparent, unenthusiastic. Okay. All righty. Great. That's fabulous. Thank you so much. Well, let me ask you this. Was I communicating? Yeah, I was communicating. Yeah, sure, of course I was. If I wanted to, was I being effective? If I wanted, no. Some people are saying no. Lots of no's. Okay. If I wanted to give the impression that I was unsure, that I was nervous, that I was unenthusiastic, all those things that you nailed when you were putting comments in the chat room, sure, I was being effective. But if I didn't want to give that impression, not so very much. So that's what this session is about today. The key to good communication is that all parties hear and experience the messages that are being sent back and forth in this way that the sender intends. Okay, does that make sense? All right, so let's move on. Okay, Monica, I almost called you Tasha. Monica, if I call you Tasha, have been working with a Tasha recently. Please just know I'm talking to you. Monica, in all transparency, Monica and I have known each other and worked together for a long time. So that was who am I. Next one, please. So today's agenda is, first of all, we're going to spend some time on our brains. Okay. All communication starts with our brains. And it's important to understand how our brain works, how it both helps us communicate, but also impedes us communicating. So we're going to spend quite a bit of time on that. And then I want to go over things I call 5 elements. Now, these are not the only elements that can help you improve or be a better communicator. Okay, there are 5 things that I've found have been useful for me. They're also, it's not a linear process. They're not necessarily linked. So if I jump from one thing to the next, you're going, how is that related to that? It's not necessarily, it just could be a very distinctive individual element that I've discovered that has worked. So, and the other thing is that there are others. So you're not just limited to this. If you find these are helpful, which hopefully you will, don't try doing everything all at once. That's when people fail at things. Pick one or two things that you think that you could use and that you can practice and you can get good at. And then when you're good at that, when it feels sort of natural, then you can try something else again. Okay. The final thing is I know I'm talking really fast. I do get nervous when I'm on a strict deadline. I could teach a whole semester on this. I'd love to teach a whole semester on this. Someone please hire me so I could teach a semester on this. But since we only have about an hour, I'm just going to skim over things. Please, if you have a question, Monica and Serena are there. They're my backbone. They're there to catch me when I miss things. Don't hesitate to ask questions. You are going to get Monica's going to post in the chat at the end of the session a handout I've created for you. Whoops, where are we? A handout that I created for you that has everything in this session plus a little bit more. So if we get to some questions and it takes a little bit of time, you'll get everything you need anyway. Okay, so next one, please. So let's start with a basic communication model. You've probably all seen this before, but a basic communication model is the sender decides what to communicate. So in this case, it's me communicating to you. I what's called encode the message. That means I think about the words I'm going to use, the language I'm going to use, how fast or how slow I am, even things about facial expressions, body language, things like that. That's all encoding the message. And I send it to you, which is what's happening right now. You receive that message and you filter it through your own brain and your previous experiences, your knowledge of the subject, you know, how you're feeling right now, your experiences with me. Maybe if you know me, you might be hearing it one way, whereas if you don't, you might be hearing it another way. And then you give me feedback. So I could see some people's faces here, and it's really helpful because I'm getting feedback from you, letting me know, am I being effective or am I not being effective? Am I connecting, whatever. And then you send that feedback to me, either in facial expressions or questions, or, you know, going back and forth with actually speaking to one another. I hear that, I interpret it, I respond, I go back and forth. So communication really isn't one person talking at another. It's that interchange between all the parties. And it's, you know, I react to you, you react to me, I react to you. And so that's an ongoing communication. Those beautiful colors to either the right or the left of your screen, whatever it is, represents what's called static. And static is anything that interferes with you really being able to hear my message. Okay, so very quickly, could you put in the chat box some things that you think are static or that you know are static? Your brain, yeah. Misunderstandings. Yep. Yep. Right, distractions, a lot of distractions. Sleep, oh yeah. Monica and I were talking before you all came, how little sleep we both got last night. Distractions. So distractions could be anything, right? They could be the sound of my space heater going, so I'm not sitting here shivering. It could be the cats running up the stairs, which just happened. It could be being tired. They're emphasizing it. They're going up and down the stairs here. It could be your brain, right? Your previous experience with me. If we've had a bad interaction in the past, there's going to be a lot of static there. You're not necessarily hearing me. Okay? So static, for the rest of today, what we're going to be talking about is lessening static, hopefully. I'm going to hopefully teach you how to help yourself and others lessen static, and also not only yourself, but others. Okay, and we're going to talk about why this is important for you setting the stage, not only for your own brain, but for the other person's. So Monica, could you flip to the next one? I'm going to give you an example of this. So what we have here is a picture of my youngest son. You'll never get a picture of him without him doing this. It drives me crazy. And he married a woman from Mongolia when she was here studying. And she wanted to get married in a traditional Mongolian ceremony. Okay, by the time the ceremony happened on an auspicious day, Evan, yes, somebody knows Evan. he must go to Connor O'Neill's where he works. By the time the wedding happened on an auspicious day, she was pregnant. Okay, now I thought that when they were talking auspicious, it meant for the couple. You know, that having a long, happy, fruitful marriage, right? No. Auspicious meant every bride in Mongolia who wanted to get married that year. So what you at the wedding palace, okay, which is the picture where you see our immediate family, that's the wedding palace. Okay, and the doors at the top of the stairs is where people went for the ceremony. Okay, so there were literally hundreds of brides in this one little building waiting to get married. And you can see at the top of the stairs there, another big bridal party. They're waiting for us to get our pictures taken so they could come down and get their pictures taken. My other son told me that the wedding started at 12:01 that morning and we're going every 20 minutes until 11:20 that night. One after another, after another, after another, after another. So the lady in the light blue, her job was to make sure that all happened on time. Okay. The night before the wedding, the woman in the dark blue, my son's mother-in-law, called me and said, "Would you like to be a witness?" Sure, I'd like to be a witness. Why not? I can do that. I could sit there, watch the wedding happening, sign a piece of paper, and perfect. You know, they were married. I was a witness. This is cool. I got there that day and found out that being a witness meant I was in the wedding. I wasn't just watching it. I was actually actively participating. And as the groom's mother, I went first. So in this whole environment that you're seeing here, the lady in the light blue was explaining what was going to happen to my daughter-in-law, San, and her son, my bonus grandson, Turu. And Montoya, Evan's mother-in-law, was translating for Evan and I. At the end of this very brief description of what was going to happen, Montoya said, "Okay, are you ready to go?" And I said, "Well, is someone going to tell me what to do when?" And she looked at me and she said, "I just did." Okay, so my question for you is that what static was happening during this entire part of the wedding? What were we all experiencing that was static? Stress, culture, confusion, language barriers, miscommunication, expectations. Yep. Yep. Perfect. Great comments. Yes, all of those things. So not to mention assumptions. Yeah, not to mention my poor daughter-in-law's illness, because she was feeling horrible. She looks gorgeous there. She was feeling terrible. It was all a mask. So cultural differences. Surprise, yeah, cultural differences. So let's talk about that for a minute. In this case, it was Mongolian versus US cultural surprise, right? But culture isn't necessarily culture like that. I looked at the registration for this class, and about half the people are from medical campus, the other half are from central campus. Are there cultural differences between those sides of campus? Absolutely. Central campus and plant ops or athletics? Absolutely. For people who are not even a part of U of M, from their organization to our organization, differences in culture? Absolutely. And I think a lot of times when we are communicating, we forget that. We forget that if someone came from a different part of campus, it's a cultural difference. You've also got age. You've also got all sorts of other things that we all easily identify as cultural issues that may cause some static. Being rushed, someone said that. Language difference, okay? But again, it doesn't just have to be Mongolian versus English. Do you have the same definition of late? Now, that might sound silly to you, but I worked in a job where the expectation was I was supposed to be there about between 8 and 9 o'clock. Honestly, my boss didn't care what time I wandered in because I would always work really late. I'd work till 7, 8 o'clock at night. And as long as there was nothing going on in the morning that I had to be there for, she was fine. My work was getting done, that's the kind of job I had. I've worked with departments at the university where I've had the manager say to me, well, if my people aren't in place at 5 to 8 when they're supposed to start at 8, they're late, okay? So even the definition of things like late or what's confidential. In a job I had before I came to the university, everything we said in the staff, nothing we said in the staff meeting was confidential unless we said it was. When I came to the university, everything was confidential unless we said it wasn't. So I almost got myself fired the first month I worked here because I inadvertently said things to another department that was supposed to be confidential. And my boss brought me into her office and she said, I thought you knew how to deal with confidentiality. Well, I did, but we just had different understandings of what that meant. Okay, next slide. So how do we lessen static? What are some of the things we could do? Well, first of all, as some of you have alluded to, try to eliminate all those outside noises, right? I was lucky in this situation because although Montoya took me and sort of dragged me through this crowd of people saying, come on, we have to get going. At least we had that small little room to be in to hear the instructions as opposed to being told all of this in the middle of this crowd, okay? If she had had the opportunity, in this case she didn't, but Juan was really sick, she was feeling miserable. That probably wasn't a good time to explain things to her, okay? So try to eliminate some outside noises. Before you talk to someone, if at all possible, ask them if it's a good time to talk. Have you ever had the experience when your boss has said to you, oh, by the way, Deborah, or whatever your name is, I want to talk to you. We need to talk. And what has been your immediate reaction, right? I don't know about you, but my immediate reaction has always been, what did I do wrong? Am I in trouble? Uh-oh, someone complained about me? Someone didn't like my workshop. Oh my goodness, well, my goodness, because someone says 100%, yeah, right? So we actually trained my boss because she was doing this to everybody. And we were like, you are stressing us out. And most of the time it was nothing. Right? Most of the time it was nothing. So we got her to say, I need to talk to you for a little while today. It's not a big deal. We need about 15, 20 minutes. And we would all go, oh, okay, cool. So we weren't stressed, that anxiety that some of you were mentioning there, okay? So is it a good time to talk? Is this the right time and place to have the conversation? Are you even the right person to have it? I am, my one son has called me a rabid grizzly bear when you do something that I feel is detrimental to one of my children. And my children don't necessarily have to be my birth children. They could be all of these kids that have grown up in my house. So when teachers would call about something, right, I wouldn't talk to them. I couldn't. I would just get so angry over things that sometimes I thought were stupid. I'd let their father deal with it. Okay, I wasn't the right person. Or maybe I was the right person, but I was the wrong time to talk to me about it. I was too anxiety driven or too upset at that point to do anything about it. All righty. So those are some of the ideas that you can use to try to lower some of that static. And, you know, you're all smart people and you know how to do this. if you have some ideas of your own. Let's see how this works. Okay, Monica, could you go next slide, please? So I talked about needing to override our brains. And as you were putting comments into the chat about, yes, you get stressed, or, your brain works against you, all those kind of things. Why does that happen? Well, it happens because when we were evolving, the first thing that happened was our brain was developed to protect us. Okay. We didn't have the luxury of going, oh, what a nice kitty cat. I wonder if I can pet it. When you're first facing a saber-toothed tiger. No, you're going to run. You're going to do everything you can to get away from that. So our brain first developed to protect us. The interesting thing about that is that our brain and our bodies react exactly the same way to physical threat. I'm afraid I'm going to get eaten by this tiger or smacked by somebody. Exactly the same way as if we feel we are under threat psychologically or emotionally. So if we feel that our mental or our psychological, our emotional safety is threatened, whether we're uncertain what the heck is going on right now, feel a lack of control, status, do I belong here? Do they want me here? Is this the right place for me? Or fairness, this is utterly unfair. We react the same way as if we were being chased by that saber-toothed tiger. Cortisol level goes up, stress goes up, blood pressure goes up, and our brain goes into fight, flight, or freeze, not necessarily rational thought. So I think this is the next one. Yeah, Monica, we're going to do a role play. I need a volunteer. Now, you're going to have to put yourself on the spot a little bit. Anybody? John Rodriguez has his hand raised. Oh, John, thank you so much.
Good morning.
Hi.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Can I hear you? Can you hear me? Are you on?
Yes.
You on mute? Yes, there you are. Hello, John. Well, thank you so much for volunteering. You're going to be put on the spot. Just want you to know that. All right. Hopefully you're strong. You can handle it. So here's what's going to happen. For the purpose of this role play, which is going to last less than 5 minutes. Okay. I'm your boss. Okay. You obviously work for me. You see all these 148 people that are in this seminar today, this session, they report to you. They're your team. You all have spent the last 6 months working on a project. Okay. It was horrible. Everything that possibly could have gone wrong went wrong, except for the fact that your team was stellar. Any problem that happened, they solved. Anytime anybody was sick, they filled in. Someone had a baby in the process, they left people covered for them. No arguments. I mean, it was remarkable. You've never seen this many people cooperating and doing such a great job in your life. Okay? Now, tomorrow you're going to send me this report on this project via email. But, excuse me, you are so proud of this team that you have to brag about them to me right now. You have just got to gush. You want me to know before I read this report what a magnificent group of people you're working with, okay? So get my attention and I'll respond to you and then you can tell me about this team. Was I clear?
I think so. Did you actually want me to do that right now?
Absolutely, yes, please.
All right, so I'm not discussing the report yet.
Correct.
But I am discussing our engagement or our team.
Yes.
So, Deborah, I wanted to let you know that tomorrow we'll have our report ready for you. But
okay, good.
Before we talk about that, and I'm sure we'll have a full, more thorough conversation about the details in the report. But before we talk about that, I want to tell you that the people I have been working with have been beyond outstanding. They have shown up at every corner whenever we had something arise that appeared to be a challenge. They were able to support each other well, and I was very surprised by that. There were
John, is this relevant to the report?
Absolutely,
Is this relevant to the report? You're going to
Yes,
give me
it
the
is.
report tomorrow, right?
Yes.
Okay, let's just talk about this. I got other things to do. I'm busy right now. I don't want to hear about this team. They're supposed to work well together. They're a team.
Yes.
That's what they're getting paid for.
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. But
So,
Deborah, you're aware that we do sometimes have challenges with
John,
teamwork.
John,
This is
did you just
important
hear
to
me?
know. Yes.
Okay, time out.
Okay.
Okay, everybody. Yay, John. That was wonderful. Thank you so much for letting me treat you like that. Okay,
That's
now,
fair.
John,
Yes.
how were you feeling when I was doing that?
Um, there's a little bit of anxiety about it, because one, I'm reporting to you,
Right?
and you're my boss, so I have to decide: am I going to continue to defend, or am I going to back down
Mm-hmm.
on what's important at the moment? So I had to decide at that moment: do I push this or do I not?
Right. So what, now be honest, please be honest.
Yeah.
What were you thinking about me at that time?
Oh, so yeah, my thoughts about you, I was like, that was kind of harsh. That was pretty harsh. And I would say rude to interrupt, since we had already established I had a moment to be able to share a thought. But it also seemed that you were not interested
Yeah.
in this aspect of the conversation. Obviously, you weren't
Yeah.
interested in the aspect of the conversation. So that's information I'm processing about how I'm going to continue to interact with you.
Right. Right.
Even in that moment, I have to start making decisions. Okay, is
Yeah.
this the type of person I want to keep
Yeah,
engaging with
right.
regularly?
Exactly. Exactly. So for the rest of you, I've sort of, when John and I've been talking, I've sort of picked up some of the comments in the chat. But Monica, how were they feeling? What were they thinking about? Monica, are you there?
How were they?
Comments
Yes, I'm
in
here.
Okay. What were
Yeah.
people thinking and feeling as they were watching this? Because I was seeing that people were posting comments.
Oh, everything from good job, John, body language first. John had patience. Let's see what else I can find. Oh, the Oscar goes to John. I love that one. Let's see, cold, anxiousness. Yes, body language as soon as he started talking, insensitive, impatient, wanted Deborah to stop. A lot of good comments.
Okay, so let's just unpack this for a second, right? John, am I your boss?
No,
Have we ever even met before right now?
I'm not quite sure, because
I'm
I do
not
sit in a
sure
lot of
either.
circles.
Are these people your staff? Did you work on a project?
No, some people
No.
I do know, but yeah.
Right. And yet, look what happened. Everybody responded like this, right? We felt threatened. We felt like I was being insensitive. You know, people wanted me to stop. I was cold. I was rude. You know, you were feeling insulted. Some people were probably feeling protective towards John. You know, she's being horrible to him, right? We all knew it's fake. We all knew this was the setup. This was just a role play, right? We were just playing here. And yet look how quickly our brains shifted into defensive mode, into judgment mode, into all of those things that the brain does when it's feeling threatened. Okay. Thank you so much, John. I really appreciate it. You're done being on the spot for today.
Thank you.
Okay. So could you, next slide, Monica, please. Thank you. So what do you do? How can we do this? Suggestions for overcoming your brain. This was, to me, I love this exercise because I've used it many times. It has never failed. When I first saw it, it didn't fail. I felt the same way as the rest of you did, okay? So what can you do if you find yourself in a John situation where he's being unduly attacked, or even if you feel threatened for whatever reason? First, stop, take a breath. Before you respond, get yourself centered, okay? Ask yourself, what don't I know that might help explain what I'm seeing or hearing or feeling? When you ask your brain questions, you're starting to try to move it from the defensive mode back to the rational part of the front brain where it could start to process things more rationally as opposed to just fight, flight, or freeze. So what do I know that might explain this is a really, really good catch-all phrase for a lot of things. Be aware of your own assumptions and biases. I would assume that John never figured in a million years that I was going to be rude and nasty to him. Right? Never. He's like, right? So be aware of your assumptions and your biases. Language, whether you've had conversations with this person before. You know, if you've had a conversation with the person and it didn't go well, we have a tendency to react not only to what's happening right now, to what's happened in the past, in the past, in the past. Okay. So try to help your brain get over that, looking at the past, and just focus on what's going on right now. And again, ask questions. Okay, next one, please, Monica. Okay, let's skip this one. We're going to skip ahead ones. Then we'll come back to this. Perfect. Thank you so much. So why is this important? Well, the rest of today's session is to help you train your brain to go from that danger, danger, danger to moving into a more rational spot. The first thing that's really important in any conversation is to know your goal. Why are you having this conversation with this person? When I've taught this kind of stuff when I was at the university, I'd have people say, well, you know, there's someone in my office who doesn't dress very professionally. And, you know, well, okay, why are you telling that person that? Why are you even addressing it, right? Are you the person's supervisor? Well, in that case, probably yes. Are you a friend and you're concerned about them? I once knew someone who everybody around them was talking about them because they felt that she was wearing skirts that were too short. So as a friend, maybe I would talk to her about it. If you're a colleague and you see her walking by and you're looking too slutty and that skirt's too short, why? Is that even your business, right? So it's always important to understand what your goal is. And we're going to be referring back to this a lot. Okay. Could you go back to the slide now, please, Monica?
Yep. And also before I do so, we have one question in the chat that says,
oh, okay, yes, please.
How do you reset yourself when the person you are speaking displays those reactions?
How they display the reactions?
Yes.
You don't react to them. Okay. If you can change the way that you react, it helps them change the way that they react. Because at the beginning, remember I said, we're interacting with one another, and every time each person reacts to the other, I'm changing my behavior slightly in response to what you just said, Monica. And then you change your behavior or your mindset in response to what I said. So I once had a boss, we both admitted that neither one of us particularly cared about each other, but we had to work together, so we made the best of it. And she called me into her office one day and said, Deborah, we need to talk. This is going to be a very difficult conversation. And I'm like, oh, that's a good start. So we sat there and she said something. And I know what it was, but it's not worth it to get into it here. But I was so shocked by what she said that I literally sat there, and I'm sure my face was like, because I just found it
Alexa, turn the sunroom lights on.
Pardon me?
Okay.
Oh, okay. I was so shocked. I was absolutely astounded by what she was saying. And I went back to the phrase I was talking about. What else could explain why she believed that about me? So I said to her, I'm really shocked by what you're saying. Could you give me some examples? Yes, I could. And she gave me some examples. And I said, oh, well, I can see why you would believe that if that's all the information you had. Could I tell you what else was happening and why I did what I did, which you noticed? I suppose so. Okay. So I told her. And at that point, she was like, oh, I didn't know that. So I thought, okay, this is working. So is there anything else that would give you this impression? And she told me, and I said, well, you're right. I do that. I did. And then the reason why I do that is because such and such and such and such. She said, well, the reason why you need to do that is that, or not do that, is such and such and such and such. Like, oh, okay. Well, I didn't know that. I didn't realize that that's why we were doing that. And that's, and she's okay. And I knew I shouldn't have said it at the end of this. I said, is there anything else? She said, no. I knew I shouldn't have said it, but I did anyway. And we said, so why did you think that was going to be a difficult conversation? And she said, because I thought you were going to be defensive. As soon as I reacted differently than what she was expecting, it took her aback and it made her react differently. Because she couldn't continue to react to the way that because I would get defensive usually, and then she would get snarky, and then I would get more defensive, then she would get more snarky, and it would be this ongoing, right? As soon as I didn't act that way, she had to do something different. And she tried being snarky, and I wasn't going to have it. I was like, no, I really want to know what's in your brain. And things changed. So whoever asked that question, does that make sense? Does that help? Yes? No?
Feel free to unmute your mic.
Pardon me?
No, I was just.
Yeah, thank you. I guess part of that, someone else kind of commented that, how do you combat making yourself feel small? Or, she came to that conversation with her own biases and ideas. So how do you kind of combat that without responding in the way that we typically would?
I love that question. Thank you so much. See the slide that's there right now? That's why this is so important. Know what your goal is. Okay. It doesn't matter if at that moment I'm feeling small. If my goal is to get through this conversation, to understand why my boss, who I was going to have to work with, had this impression of me. Basically, it was about using resources in the department. And she thought I was just like using things left. It was back in the days when color printing was really expensive. And she said, that's all you do is you color print, you blah, 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 blah. What she didn't know was that I was also reusing paper and reusing all sorts of stuff to offset the color printing. Because I thought that color printing, when I would be giving people handout, were much more effective and looked more professional. But we wouldn't have had that conversation if I hadn't put what I call myself in that one down position and just went, well, tell me what you're saying and why you believe that, right? We're going to talk about it a little bit more in the future, but we might as well hit it right now. You need to listen to these conversations with curiosity. That's why I love that. What don't I know that can explain this? Because if you could start to think about, what don't I know? What else do I need to know? Listen to it with curiosity. Then what you're finding is that, what I find anyway, that my brain goes from defense to, okay, I'm learning new information. And then you continue to stay in the rational, and hopefully it will keep the other person in the rational also. I once did a workshop in front of a bunch of judges. And so I did a lot of research beforehand because I was kind of nervous about this. And I asked several people who were police officers, what do you do to keep from getting hooked into, the anger and stuff? What do you do? I asked them, what's the most important thing to learn as a police officer? And this one friend of mine said, do not get sucked into their energy. Stay in your lane, know what your goal is, and head towards that goal. Don't get sucked into their energy. And I think the same thing is true for this. Your goal is to have this conversation. Your goal is to make this other person back off. Your goal is to help your supervisor understand something, or to help your employee change a behavior. That's your goal. When you can focus on that, it really helps all this other stuff fall in place. Okay, Monica, could you go back one, please?
Deborah,
Yes.
we're at time check. We're at 9:13.
I know. Thanks. Okay, so understand your audience is really important. Who are they? What's in it for them to listen? People don't listen to you unless there's something in it for them to listen. That colleague walking by wearing the short skirt and you just want to criticize what they're wearing, why should they listen to you? Right? It's not relevant to them. Okay. We often say, well, why should I alter the way that I talk for somebody else? But we do it all the time anyway. I know for a fact that when you are in your religious or environment, your organization, you don't talk to the people there the same ways you talk to your kids or your best friends or a random stranger in the street, right? We talk to everybody different ways because we know who they are, and we alter our language and how we act because we know this information. So as much as possible, try to figure out who they are, what's in it for them, what might be their blocks for hearing. So this is not always possible, especially if this is the first conversation with the person. But again, trying to lessen the environmental noise and static and stuff like that. And what might you need to do to help them hear you better? It might be if you're not the right person, don't talk to them. It might be just taking a deep breath and saying, okay, I can see right now that this conversation is very upsetting to you. Why don't we come back in a half hour and take it up again, and it'll give you some time to sort of calm down. What often happens is that we know what we're going to say to the person, right? And we're all prepared, but they don't know. You know, and then we jump on them and we say, well, such and such and such and such. And they're like, wait a minute, what? Okay. So give them time to prepare. Okay. Monica, next one. Are there any more questions at this point? Cool. Okay, next one, please. Okay, this used to be Orlowski's first rule of communication. This is now first rule of life. Never assume the worst first. Okay. And again, it gets to, we have to, thank you, Don. We have to assume things. We have to assume that the air we breathe is at least relatively healthful, that hopefully when we turn on the water, it's not brown and poison. You know, when we come to work, that we get paid for so many hours of work. But I find that we often assume negative things and then we react based on our negative assumptions. So typical story, right? You're driving down the street, someone cuts you off. What's our reaction? Oh, jerk, what the heck are they doing? Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so what I'd like you to do for the next day or so, day and a half, is just notice every time you think something negative. Okay, so yeah, I've done this before and people are like, oh, really? You may be surprised at how often you think negative things about a person, a situation, something that someone says, a random stranger walking by. Don't do anything about it, just notice it, okay? And then on Sunday or Monday, what I'd like you to do is to start to see if you can come up with counters to those negative thoughts, right? What else could help explain what I'm seeing or hearing or experiencing? So what else could it help explain that person cutting me off? Well, maybe legitimately they didn't see you, right? Maybe they're just learning how to drive and they accidentally cut you off. Maybe they've got someone in the car that needs to go to the hospital, or they've got someone at the hospital and they're panicked because they have to get there because the person was just taken there. It doesn't matter if your reasons are the correct ones. They really are. Maybe the person just is a jerk and cut you off, but it doesn't matter. What we're trying to do is to help our brain start to not assume the negative things. So when we're having conversations, we're reacting to the other person in as neutral a way as possible, if that makes any sense. Let me give you an example here, the story. A couple of weeks ago, I was babysitting my 5-year-old granddaughter, who can be, in all honesty, a little princess. And she hates losing. And her uncle Andrew was there also. And we were playing Twister. She wanted to play Twister, so we were playing Twister. She has a almost 2-year-old brother. He literally wants to do everything that she does. So she's playing Twister, he knocks her over, and she just loses it. I didn't say you knocked me over. And I was like, Maria, it's okay. Just go back on the spots. We know Xavier knocked you over. It wasn't your fault. You know, you can get back on your spots and continue. And by this time, I'm like, for Christ's sakes, little princess, get it together. And then I went, wait a minute. Okay, never assume the worst. So I took her on my lap and I said, Maria, I said, what's going on? Xavier knocked me over. I said, honey, I know Xavier knocked you over, but Uncle Andrew and I said, it doesn't matter. You could get back on your spots. You know, we could continue playing or not play again. But I don't know my left hand or which one is my right hand. Oh, so the reason why you're upset is you don't know your right hand or your left hand? No. So at that point, Uncle Andrew's, oh, Maria, this is here. You know how you know your left, and here's how you know your right. And by the time he got done explaining it to her, she was pretending she didn't understand. And he'd say, so which is your left foot? She'd show him her right, and she'd giggle. Okay. Crisis solved. If I had assumed the worst, which was that she was being a little princess, I would have gotten annoyed with her. She wouldn't have stopped. She never would have learned how to tell her right hand from her left. And the whole situation would have been different. Okay. So it's a really handy thing to be able to do. Next, please. Oh my goodness, I am like way behind. Okay, next. That's okay. We've had some good questions and stuff. Next slide. Oh, here it is. Never mind. Sorry. The other thing is to control your expectations. Okay. I was expecting this child to act for like an adult. What I had to think about was the fact that she was a 5-year-old kid. It was getting late. She was getting tired. Xavier was getting tired. They were bored with having me here. She really wanted her mommy. You know, my expectations and her expectations for what should be happening at that moment were not necessarily true. The other thing I find is that people often have their buttons pushed because other people aren't living up to their expectations. You know, and so people will say to me, well, it's not fair. My supervisor let so-and-so come in at 9:20 and I have to be here at 9 o'clock. It's like, well, them coming in at 9:20 affect the job that you do? No, but it's not fair. It may not be any of your business. Why is that anything to do with you? Because it's not fair. Okay, I understand it's not fair, and it might not be fair. But what else could explain that? Maybe your boss and this other person have some kind of understanding. Maybe there's a medical issue or transportation issue, or, you know, it's really your boss's issue. It's really not yours. So sometimes when we're looking at our expectations and we feel like they're being violated, it's helpful to say, is this about them violating a common expectation or them violating what I think should be the explanation? Is it about them or is it about me? And if it's about you, maybe you need to think about your expectations again. Vacation last summer, the pictures with the boats were what you used to have. The picture that we had this past year was what we had. I spent 2 days being angry because I wanted a place on the lake. And finally, my friend with me said, why are you so upset? I said, because this isn't what I wanted for us. This is not right. We're looking at a parking lot. I can barely see the lake. She said, honestly, that's all I wanted to do was to get away and to not have to answer my phone or emails and, you know, fall asleep in the middle of the day if I wanted to and go down and listen to the water and go for a walk and read and have a beer or two. She said, I'm happy. Different expectations, right? As far as she was concerned, it was a great vacation. Okay, next one, please. So feedback can often feel like a threat to us because, again, we're feeling like we're being attacked. If we could rethink the way we give and see feedback, it could make things completely different. Think of it as a gift. So next slide, please, Monica. Okay, so here's the princess. And she really is a great kid. She's smart and she's adorable. I love her to death. But anyway, when you're giving feedback or receiving feedback, let the other person talk. Okay. Listen with curiosity, accept what could apply, reject what's not important. You know, Maria, Now that we're back in the office, you shouldn't be wearing pajamas to work anymore. Well, I don't understand why not. I wore them at home. It was no big difference. I said, well, okay, listen with curiosity. So why do you think it was okay to wear your pajamas at home, but not here? We're in a call center. No one could see us anyway. What difference does it make? Okay, that's a valid point, except what could apply, what's not important. Ask questions. Okay. It seems to me that we had a conversation before the pandemic where you said that you wanted to advance. You wanted a promotion at some point, maybe go into supervising. Is that true? Yeah. You still have that goal? Yes, I do. Okay. So, even though we're in a call center here and we're sort of self-contained, there are times when my supervisor and other people come in. And my concern is that if you're wearing pajamas, that they're going to see this and they're going to think that you're not supervisory material. Well, you came in with sweatpants. So, when you're giving feedback, you may give feedback back to you. That might be things you might not want to hear. But again, accept what could apply, reject what's not important right now. You are right. I did wear sweatpants. I had to come to the office, do something very quick. I was here for a half hour, 45 minutes, but you make a very good point. Sweatpants and pajamas really aren't that different. I shouldn't have done that. Okay. Remember my goal. So the goal is, please do not wear pajamas to the office anymore, even though we are in a call center. Okay. And so if you notice the way that we're fashioning these conversations is I'm accepting those things that the person is saying. I'm not demeaning them. I'm not saying, what are you doing wearing, pajamas to the office? What is wrong with you? I'm helping them overcome their defensiveness that their brain is undoubtedly feeling at this point. Okay, next slide, please, Monica. Lastly, but not leastly, is apologizing. Okay. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm really tired of hearing people on TV go, oh, I'm so sorry I said something that may have offended you. I didn't mean to do that. I'm sorry. No, that's not a sincere apology. I'm sorry. It is just not. Okay. An sincere apology is one that's from the heart. It recognizes fault. It requires a recognition and hopefully some guilt or remorse and the acceptance of responsibility. Okay. Instrumental apology is what you just heard. They made it for a purpose. They don't want to get knocked off of, their TV show or sent to some, rehab program or whatever it is. Right? And it doesn't recognize the guilt or accepting responsibility in an authentic way. Saying, oh, I'm so sorry that I offended anybody is not really accepting guilt. Okay. Now, instrumental apologies can be fine. You're walking down the street, you hit somebody. Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. Okay. They don't want, oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, that was my fault. Please accept my apologies. That's not the appropriate time to have a sincere apology. Okay. So there are appropriate times to do one or the other. Next slide, please, Monica. So why apologize? Because it makes the other person feel better, because it maintains an emotional connection. If you want to have a true conversation about why was that other person offended or why did you do something that hurt the other person, you both have to have a certain amount of vulnerability. And it's very difficult for people to be vulnerable. It's very difficult. And so by apologizing, what you're doing is opening that door slightly for them to start to feel comfortable being vulnerable, okay? And it starts to undo some of the harm. Next one, Monica. And not only does it start to do harm, start to undo the harm with the other person, but it also helps us too. I was surprised when I started to do research about this, that the person who has committed the wrong, if they don't apologize and sincerely mean it and take responsibility for it, after a while, if you do that enough, it starts to physically affect your body. It starts to affect your self-esteem. It affects your body in the way our body functions. So it's important for everybody that these apologies are given and given honestly. So next one, please.
Okay,
Um,
before we do that, Deborah, we have a question and it's almost 9:30, so I just want
Yes,
to be
I know.
mindful.
I want to do this one thing. Can the question wait till after I get done with this?
We can, yes, most certainly.
Because this will take me till 9:30 and then we can talk to the question, okay? So steps of the apology. Acknowledge, I'm sorry my actions caused you hurt. Remorse with empathy. I'm very sorry my thoughtless actions caused you hurt. If someone did that to me, I'd be devastated. I can't imagine how you must feel. Do not tell them, oh, I know exactly how you feel 6 months ago that happened to me, blah, 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 blah. Because now it's about you, first of all. Secondly, no, you don't know how they feel. You're not them. Okay. The last one is restitution. I know if someone did that to me, I'd be devastated. I can't imagine how you must feel. I know if that happened to me, I would feel devastated. I know I can't fix things completely, but I'd like to try to start. What can I do? Okay. I did this with someone that I was very close to. I was actually dating the man. I hurt him. And it was interesting what happened, because when I got to the restitution, I know that there's nothing I can do to really make things up to you, but I'd like to try. His reaction to me was, you're right, there isn't. And I was like, oh, wow. I wasn't expecting that. I was kind of expecting, oh, no, you're okay. No, he says, you're right. You're right. He said, and I said, well, does that mean that, you don't want to ever talk to me again? No. He said, you really hurt me deeply. And it was right after my father passed. And, it was just, I was like, yeah, you're right. You're right. It was bad. And he said, it's going to take me some time to get over it, but I appreciate you apologizing. And yeah, we'll work through it. And, 8 years later, we're still friends. So when you give an apology, don't expect it necessarily to be, oh, yes, now everything's forgiven, because that other person will likely need to do just what he needed to do, and that's to work through it and to process it. But if you're genuine, hopefully, at least you'll start that process. Okay, Monica, question, please.
Yeah, so in the chat, Katie said, and I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, can an apology be sincere even if you think the other person is wrong? And how do you make it sincere when you really don't agree, or should there be an agree to disagree scenario?
I hate to agree to disagree, because I think oftentimes when we're apologizing to someone, I may do something that I don't think was necessarily wrong, but if that other person was offended or hurt, clearly they were offended or hurt. So again, what is your goal? Is your goal to make them see that you're right and they're wrong? Or is your goal to maintain that relationship and to recognize the fact that, yes, I could see where you were very hurt. Okay. And, if I were in your shoes, I might be very hurt too. You don't have to necessarily say that out loud, but you don't know that person's situation. You don't, okay, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna speak for myself here. Okay. As a white woman, I know that there have been times in the past when I have not understood completely why someone who was a Black woman or a friend of color got offended by something. And what I have learned is that it isn't necessarily just the experience of that moment. It's things piled on top, on top, on top, on top, on top. And in a sense, this was just a thing that the person is like, I've had it, because I'm tired of this kind of thing happening over and over again. For me, oh, I didn't mean to do that, and I'm so sorry, and all those kind of insincere things. I'm just reacting to what's going on in the moment. I don't know what's going on in that person's brains. I don't know what happened in their previous experiences with things. I'm not living their lives. So I think it behooves us, if we genuinely want to continue those connections, is to recognize that that person is sincerely hurt. They are sincerely upset. And the apology is about the fact that I said or did something, whether it was knowingly or not, that caused this reaction in them. And now I want to make amends for that. I want to somehow move beyond that for myself and for them. Does that help? Does that?
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions? I do have a few minutes. We have like 5 minutes. I actually did it. So we left time at the end for some questions. Yeah, someone just said, sorry has become a default reaction. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not saying the whole comment, but I believe the Wall Street Journal had an article about this topic and indicated other countries or cultures do not feel compelled to apologize. That's a really interesting point, because when I was in Mongolia for the first time, my daughter-in-law took me aside and she said, Mom, please stop saying I'm sorry. I'm like, what? And she said, in Mongolia, we don't apologize for everything the way you do in the United States. You know, we apologize, we hold the door open, we say thank you. Or, you know, you say, I'm sorry because I, bumped into you. We figure that as decent human beings, you would naturally hold the door open. And when you say, oh, I'm sorry for not holding the door open, or thank you for holding the door open. In a sense, what we're saying is that we didn't think that you were a decent enough human being to just do it as a matter of course. So yeah, a lot of this is very cultural. And that's why I think it's important to focus on the person and their reaction and how they're feeling. And again, trying to have that conversation with empathy. I really want to understand how you're feeling, but most of all, I want to try to make it better.
And also in the chat that Rebecca had replied, especially as women, we have that problem. So I don't know if you want to address that as well.
Of saying I'm sorry?
In the chat,
Yeah.
Rebecca had replied from the last comment that we have the problem, especially as women, as always saying we're sorry as a default.
Yeah, we do, because I think that it's been ingrained in us, a lot of us, as a defense mechanism. It's almost what someone said earlier, we're making ourselves smaller in many ways because it has protected us in the past. And interestingly, I think when you stop saying I'm sorry for things like that, then all of a sudden people start to look at you a different way. She's gruff, she's rough, she's aggressive, she's, all these other kinds of things, right? So it's a double-edged sword. It's a very difficult thing to maneuver, I think. But I mean, there are men who do the same thing too. And again, there are cultures who do the same thing. People from Canada are known for saying, I'm sorry. It's kind of an international joke. But sometimes it is just a cultural thing, but other times it does make us look and feel less powerful. Yes.
There's a couple, I don't know if you have more time, but there's a couple
I
of
think
other.
we do. I think we have 3 minutes.
Yes, so there's a lot of good comments. I want to speak to the one that John had brought up. He said, I work in DEI spaces. I think learning to apologize appropriately is an important part of the bridge building process when there are differences in understanding and experiences. Yes, I work in DEI spaces as well. I don't know if you want to talk to that particular piece as well.
That's exactly why I started to get really kind of interested in apologies. It was for exactly that reason, John. And because as human beings, we are always going to make a mistake. We are always going to say something. We are always going to do something at some point in our life where we're going to offend someone, or someone's going to think what we said or done is inappropriate. And again, going back to my experiences as a white women have a tendency, and maybe all white people, I don't know about that, but I think from my experiences, we seem to have a tendency to want to do things perfectly. And so we're afraid to say or do things because it's not going to be perfect. And what if I offend somebody? Well, somewhere along the line, you're going to offend somebody doing something. And so if we're cognizant of the other person and have learned how to really sincerely apologize and understand and really ask for that feedback again, what have I tell me what I need to know so I don't do this again. I think it really helps in those DEI spaces. Yeah.
So also, we have a couple of different people asking about book recommendations. Is there a book that you would recommend? So someone put something in the chat already, but we had a couple people asking about that.
Yeah, there's one that especially about feedback. It's, I don't have it with me, it's Thanks for the Feedback. There's another one called Difficult Conversations. Both of them are by the same authors. Let's see, what else? What do we cover? Apologies, I don't have a book. I was just doing a lot of research online. There's a lot of stuff online that have, you'll see in the handouts, I've got the sites there because there's been research being done at universities about apologies and what's an effective apology and that kind of stuff. So you might want to look at that. A basic communication model is very common in any communication book. And Overriding Our Brains there's a lot of really interesting research on neuroscience. Oh my goodness, there's this one website that I haven't gone to in a long time. It's like Science Daily or something. And you can put in what you're interested in learning about. And what it does is it actually synthesizes the latest research on whatever topic it is. So on neuroscience or whatever. Some of it you don't want to hear about. Some of it's too deep, I'll never understand it. But a lot of it is really interesting, and it can help you get deeper into how the brain works and what doesn't work and that kind of thing. So I don't know, John, Monica, do you have any? Serena, do you have any recommendations? Jump in.
Someone had added about crucial conversations.
Yes, yeah.
In the chat.
Crucial Conversations I liked. It's basically the same thing as Difficult Conversations, only they package they use different words, they package it, and they get a lot more money for it. That's my very biased opinion about it. But if you've got it, yes, it's a good book too.
So on a last note, Deborah, I don't know if you're ready for Serena and I to send out the handout.
Yes, yeah. Oh, please do.
Okay, so
I forgot about it. Thank you.
We'll be dropping that in the chat. Would you like me to advance the slides or?
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
So this is Xavier and Maria. Maria's meditating because Xavier was driving her crazy. So these are just basically a recap of everything that we have talked about. And I can't see it for some reason because my chat is now covering up everything. So that's okay. So we've talked about all of this. And if you flip to the last page, thank you very much. On the handouts, there's my email address. There is my phone number on the handouts. You will have my email address if you ever want to get in touch with me for anything, coming in, working with your group or talking to you or whatever. I'm absolutely happy to do this. And yes, I agree, cultural competency should be required for every management and supervisors, absolutely, positively. The slides are not going to be available basically because everything on the handout's a slide. I mean, everything on the slides are on the handout, plus a couple of my notes that aren't on the slide. So I want to absolutely thank one more time. I want to thank John. Thank you so very much. And my backbones, my buddies, the people that kept me sane, Serena and Monica, thank you so much, ladies. I just adore working with you and you've been fabulous. And once again, to the Women of Color Task Force, I am always honored to be asked to present at this, and I love it. I look forward to it. I don't know if there's a better group of women at the university that are my friends anyway, that have held me up, smacked me down. I've needed it, hugged me, loved me, done everything that brings me to where I am today. So thank you everyone.
Well, thank you also, Deborah. This concludes our presentation and continue on for the 41st Women of Color Task Force Conference. We'll see you in the next sessions.
Bye,
Goodbye. Thank
everybody.
you. Bye.